Every single day, millions of commuters filter through the London Underground. They ride through 161 years of engineering history, focused entirely on their morning coffee or the next stop. During daylight hours, this vast network of 270 stations operates with complete, unremarkable routine. But when the last train departs and the gates lock, the environment shifts. The sprawling crowds disappear, leaving only the maintenance crews and night contractors to navigate miles of empty, subterranean corridors. It is during these hours that a strange pattern emerges. Highly trained, pragmatic infrastructure workers are flat out refusing to complete their shifts alone in specific sections of these tunnels. These aren't passing rumors. You can find the proof in official railway union loan working policies and handwritten handover logs. Crews actively leave notes for their colleagues, documenting exact locations and warning them about what they might encounter if they linger. For the people who know this system best, the underground doubles as an actively hostile workplace. The deepest parts of the network are places where even the most experienced engineers are terrified of the dark. The most frequent hazard recorded by staff falls under atmospheric anomalies. Infrastructure surveys at Highgate Station have documented specific tunnel sections that remain inexplicably colder than the surrounding passages. At Elephant and Castle, the anomaly was more intense. A night shift cleaning contractor abandoned his post entirely in 2019, officially citing an overwhelming presence and the distinct sound of measured footsteps tracking him down an empty platform. Look at the historical mapping of the area, and a grim correlation appears. When crews built Elephant and Castle in 1890, they dug the station directly through documented 17th century plague burial pits. A similar unease affected the modern Crossrail excavation at Liverpool Street. Experienced construction crews working in the lower passages reported a heavy, unexplainable wrongness, a physical sensation that they were intruding on a space that wanted them gone. This photograph shows what those crews were standing over. This pit sat directly beneath modern transit lines. Archaeologists uncovered over 3,000 skeletons here, patients of the Bethnal Royal Hospital, known as Bedlam, buried right where millions walk every day. The dread reported by these workers tracks directly with the physical reality of their environment. They're performing routine maintenance inside disturbed mass graves. The hazard escalates from physical unease to auditory disturbances. Look at this view of a dark, curved underground track. In 2021, a worker at Farringdon filed her very first incident report after hearing the blood-curdling screams of a young girl, echoing through spaces exactly like this in the early morning hours. Court records from 1758 offer a terrifying explanation. A 13-year-old apprentice named Anne Naylor was murdered by her employer, and her body was disposed of in the exact soil where the Farringdon tracks were later laid. The auditory phenomena continue at Bethnal Green in East London. Modern train drivers frequently report the sounds of crying and panicking children drifting up from platforms that are completely empty. Those sounds align with a wartime disaster that authorities initially covered up. On March 3, 1943, the unfinished station was operating as an air raid shelter. When the siren sounded, a panicked crowd rushed the wet entrance steps, causing a catastrophic crush. In just 15 seconds, 173 people suffocated to death on the stairs. 62 of them were children. It stands as the worst civilian disaster in Britain during the Second World War, leaving a permanent scar on the location. The deep-level architecture of these stations seems to hold on to these sounds, forcing night staff to confront the same horrific echoes recorded in staff logs decade after decade. The final and most alarming category of hazard involves direct visual confirmation. At Covent Garden, multiple generations of staff have passed down warnings about a distressed Victorian gentleman who appears on the platforms before vanishing into thin air. The figure matches this man, William Terrace. He was a highly famous actor who was stabbed to death on the pavement in 1897, just yards from where the Covent Garden station would be built a decade later. Over at the vast bank and monument complex, internal staff communications actually use a specific designation for their local sighting. They call her the Black Nun. She is believed to be Sarah Whitehead, a woman driven mad by her brother's execution for forgery in 1811, seen gliding through the tunnels in full mourning dress. But the danger peaks in actively operating environments at Kennington Station. Incidents concentrate in the reversing sidings, narrow, pitch-black dead ends. Drivers navigating these tight curves report human shapes standing directly on the tracks, caught in their headlights, blinking out of existence right before impact. And when the drivers step out of their cabs, it gets worse. Railway union forums are packed with testimonies from workers walking these connecting tunnels alone, describing the distinct sound of heavy breathing and footsteps matching their pace right behind them. These consistent, documented reports represent a tangible, ongoing hazard. For the staff at Kennington, the phenomenon isn't a historical legend, it's an operational reality they have to manage every time they enter a siding. The London Underground acts as a physical connection to centuries of unhealed human trauma, cutting directly through layers of the city's history. Beneath the pavement, the city's foundation is built on top of its dead. The transit network is a subterranean graveyard where the past is baked directly into the brickwork. Millions of commuters pass through these spaces on the temporary, transient basis, but the maintenance crews are forced to occupy them, isolated and completely immersed in the heavy history of the tunnels. Tonight, long after the final trains have stopped running, isolated night crews will stay behind to keep the city moving. They will walk those deep, empty corridors alone in the dark, hoping that when the station goes quiet, silence is all they hear.